At the age of 37, Jesus Navas just captained Sevilla to their 7th Europa League crown, registering 49 appearances this season and winning the Europa League Player of the Season award at an age at which most players are facing the imminent prospect of retirement, obscurity, and, all too often, a particularly messy divorce. Most footballers are still honing their skills in their teens and early to mid-20s, peak between the ages of about 26 to 31, and then start to regress throughout their 30s due to increased injuries and physical difficulties before retiring from the sport. There are some caveats. Goalkeepers tend to peak later and wingers often earlier, and some very notable individual exceptions. Michael Owen peaked between the ages of 17 and 19, for example. Meanwhile, Fabio Quagliarella enjoyed the most prolific campaign of his career at the age of 36, when he scored 26 goals in 37 games to win the Serie A Golden Boot, but broadly speaking, that's the way things go. In today's video, in honour of Jesus Navas, he hasn't died or anything, just to be clear, I mean, in honour of him winning the Europa League, I wanted to take a look at some of the most notable examples of current players who have bucked that trend. Not just players who got better with age for longer than most and are still playing, like Luka Modric, Karim Benzema, and Robert Lewandowski, since I would argue that they have now peaked and aren't still improving. You could even throw Jesus Navas into that mix. Nor am I interested in players who have merely remained surprisingly good well into their 30s and haven't regressed much, like Edin Dzeko, Thiago Silva, and Olivier Giroud for the same reason. No, I want players like 33-year-old Bodo Glimt-wide man Amal Pellegrino, who has had comfortably the best period of his career over the last 18 months, in which he has made 69 goal contributions in exactly 69 games. Or Middlesbrough's Johnny Howson, who you could quite legitimately argue has just had the best season of his career at the grand old age of 35. Except for the fact that at least 5 of my inclusions are players that most of you will actually have heard of. Without further ado then, who certainly didn't get better with age, quite the opposite in fact, here are 7 current footballers who still seem to be improving with age. 7th, Joselu. From a Newcastle United flop at the age of 28 to signing for Real Madrid at 33, there can be few better places to start this 7 than with Spanish international Joselu. Actually very highly rated as a youngster, Joselu was first signed by Real Madrid at the age of 19, where he starred alongside Alvaro Morata for Real Madrid Castilla, after breaking into Spain's under-19 team in the academy at Celta Vigo. In fact, in his only 2 appearances for Real Madrid's first team, the first time around, Joselu scored in both games, albeit they were 8-1 and 5-1 thrashings. Joselu's career trajectory wouldn't prove to be quite as straightforward as his early promise might have suggested though. In 2012, he joined Hoffenheim, where he only managed to score 5 goals in 25 games, and was sent on loan to Eintracht Frankfurt. And that was followed by equally uninspiring stints at Hanover, Stoke City, Deportivo La Coruña, and Newcastle United. Aged 29 though, Joselu joined Alaves in the summer of 2019, where he hit double figures in a domestic top flight for the first time in his career. He replicated that feat the following season, and he scored 14 goals in the 2021-22 campaign, the 7th most in the division, despite Alaves finishing dead last in La Liga. That prompted a move to Espanyol on a free last summer, where Joselu has just had the best campaign of his career to date, aged 33. In 38 games, he scored 17 goals and made 4 assists, and the only players to score more goals than him in La Liga last season were Robert Lewandowski and Karim Benzema. He also made his Spain debut just 3 months ago, and has since scored 3 goals from 4 caps, including one against Italy in the UEFA Nations League finals. The cynic in me says Joselu will struggle for game time as Karim Benzema's replacement at Real Madrid, but if you'd have told me that he would be signed as Karim Benzema's replacement at Real Madrid back when he couldn't hit a barn door at either Stoke or Newcastle, I would also have had my doubts. So what do I know? And hopefully Joselu can keep defying all norms and expectations. 6th, John Stones. John Stones isn't that old to be featuring in a 7 of this ilk, as the youngest player in this 7, and someone who you would probably expect to be in his prime at the age of 29. Nonetheless, the sheer scale of Stones' recent and continued improvement meant that he had to feature. It wasn't all that long ago that Stones, who Man City made the second most expensive defender of all time in a £50 million move from Everton in 2016, was being written off as being too error-prone and inconsistent for a team with title-winning aspirations. Stones has never been frozen out by Pep Guardiola, but he was certainly used sparingly at times. Even last season, Stones only actually made 14 Premier League appearances, firmly playing second fiddle at centre-back, behind Ruben Dias and Aymeric Laporte. Stones has steadily been getting better and better for both club and country over the last few years though, and this season, it is no exaggeration to say that he was one of the best players in Europe. Utilised at both centre-back, right-back, and increasingly in midfield as the campaign went on, Stones has performed a dual role of dropping into the back four out of possession and stepping in alongside Rodri when Manchester City have the ball, which is approximately 88% of the time. He has been absolutely tremendous at both, and there wasn't a better player on the pitch when Man City won their first Champions League, and only English football's second continental treble against Inter Milan in Istanbul. Stones was integral to Manchester City's relentless second half of the season. He now defines their build-up play, and it could be argued that he has become the single most important player in the best team in world football. Given the fact that he still seems to be getting better and better with every passing game, and where he was just 12 or 18 months ago, he had to feature, even at only 29. 5th, Tim Ream. Tim Ream might not be integral to the best team in world football, but his expectation-defying improvement with age is no less remarkable than John Stones's. Capped 51 times by the United States, Ream won just 5 of those caps before he turned 27, and even into his late 20s and early 30s, he was still much maligned by USMNT fans and looked out of his depth every time Fulham won promotion to the Premier League. Relegated with the Cottagers in the 2018-19 and 2020-21 seasons, Ream made just 7 league appearances in the second of those two campaigns, as Fulham were relegated with just 5 wins to their name all season. That was 2 years ago, when Ream was 33. Now aged 35, Ream made the PFA Championship Team of the Year in the 2021-22 season, and in the season just gone, he made 35 appearances for a Fulham team that finished 10th in the Premier League, above their West London rivals Chelsea, to record their highest league finish in more than a decade. Ream was an ever-present for Fulham, playing every single minute of every single match, and was one of the club's best players before fracturing his arm in their 35th game of the season. In addition to his heroics for Fulham, Ream was also an ever-present for the United States at the 2022 World Cup, and following years of flack, he was arguably the US MNT's best player, alongside Tyler Adams. Given Ream's age and the fact that he wasn't even expected to make the squad until November, that is pretty remarkable, and I can only assume that he is going to keep getting better until about age 45, when he will most likely be the best centre-back in the world. 4th, Niclas Füllkrug. The Bundesliga is a bit of a hotspot for late bloomers, and arguably none more notable at this moment in time than Niclas Füllkrug. Never the most fashionable of centre-forwards, both in terms of his size and style of play, Niclas Füllkrug once ended up with a teammate's tooth lodged in his forehead after a training ground accident at Werder Bremen, and when the club re-signed him in 2019, they announced the news on social media by sharing a photograph of Füllkrug's own distinctive dental makeup. During an age in which Germany has forgotten how to produce any players that aren't midfielders, Füllkrug provides a throwback to a bygone era of German centre-forwards. A bit of a cult hero in German football now, it wasn't always thus. After struggling to break through at Werder Bremen, Füllkrug dropped down into the second Bundesliga, and very briefly even the fourth tier of German football, with Nuremberg's second team at the age of 23. But for a single season at Hanover, prior to this season, Füllkrug had never even managed to hit double figures in the Bundesliga. Following 19 goals back at Werder Bremen, in the club's second Bundesliga promotion-winning campaign last season though, Füllkrug has carried that confidence with him into the top flight. Now aged 30, he was the joint highest scorer in the Bundesliga this season, tied with £52 million Chelsea signing Christopher Nkunku. Füllkrug doesn't just provide goals though, his all-round game has also come on leaps and bounds, and he's now able to provide a constant focal point for Bremen, even chipping in with 6 assists this season. Called up to the national team on the eve of the 2022 World Cup, Füllkrug became the oldest Germany debutant in over 20 years, and he scored against both Spain and Costa Rica at the tournament, despite Germany's disappointing group stage exit. Overall, he has had a phenomenal rise in recent years, and shows no signs of letting up at the age of 30, so he had to feature. Third, İlkay Gündoğan. Sticking with the theme of Germans, İlkay Gundogan has obviously been a magnificent footballer for a very long time now, and unlike someone like Niclas Füllkrug, it's not as though he has just risen to prominence late in his career over recent years. Gundogan represented Germany at 4 different youth levels, and was signed by Borussia Dortmund as a 20-year-old, where he went on to win a Bundesliga title, reach a UEFA Champions League final, and recover from an awful spinal injury, which ruled him out for a year and 2 months, before he was signed by Manchester City for a fee of £20 million. In Gundogan's debut campaign, disaster struck once again, as he suffered a cruciate ligament rupture to his right knee. It meant almost another entire season on the sidelines, which might have destroyed some players, but Gundogan battled back as Pep Guardiola emphasised his importance to him. Ever since his second season in the Premier League, Gundogan has been superb, but he has got better and better in every one of his last 6 seasons. In the 2020-21 season, Gundogan took on a new role at times as a false 9 due to a shortage of forwards, racking up 17 goals. Last season, he began routinely captaining and running the show at the Etihad, and in the season just gone, Gundogan was inspired, dictating play, scoring goals, creating goals, and cropping up with key contributions at the most crucial of moments as Manchester City completed a historic treble. Aged 32, Gundogan still looks to be improving, which is good news for Barcelona fans, given that their club just managed to convince him to join them on a free, ahead of the contract extension that he had been offered at the Etihad. Second, Vincenzo Grifo. The least well-known player in this 7 perhaps, Vincenzo Grifo is still an Italian international, and at this stage pretty firmly established as a Freiburg legend. The free-kick king of the Bundesliga for the last few seasons, Grifo has been around for a while now, but has always struggled outside of Freiburg. First signed by the club in 2015, before having failed stints at Borussia Mönchengladbach and Hoffenheim, his homecoming arrived in 2019. Since then, Grifo has improved with every passing season and virtually every passing game. He made 15 goal contributions in the 2019-20 season, 19 in the 2020-21 season, 21 in the 2021-22 season, and 24 in the season just gone. That is an increase of roughly 4 goal contributions per season on average, and it means that, by his current trajectory, Grifo should hit 108 goal contributions and break Lionel Messi's record from the 2011-12 campaign in the 2044-45 season, by which stage he will be 51 years old. In all seriousness, Grifo's rise, and his last 2 seasons, now aged 30, have been utterly sensational, and only Christopher Nkunku had more combined goals and assists than him in the Bundesliga this season, inspiring Freiburg to a 5th place finish, which is their highest in the 3 points for a win era, the semi-finals of the DFB Pokal, and the Europa League round of 16. He is unfortunate in truth not to take top spot, and only misses out because of the truly age-defying magic of the man up next. First, Francesco Acerbi. Francesco Acerbi is 35 years old, and he has never been better at football than he is right now. Formerly of Genoa, Chievo and AC Milan, having struggled for game time at all three, Acerbi joined Sassuolo in 2013, where he was diagnosed with testicular cancer during his debut campaign. After undergoing surgery to remove the tumour, Acerbi returned to training with his teammates, but almost immediately failed a doping test. Acerbi denied taking any performance-enhancing drugs and suspected that the change in his hormone levels had been caused by his cancer returning. He subsequently underwent chemotherapy and went into remission for a second time. Renowned for his party lifestyle and lack of professionalism prior to, and indeed during to a certain extent, his battle with cancer, Acerbi had won just 3 caps for Italy by the time that he turned 31. From the 2014-15 season onwards, Acerbi did at least become an important player to Sassuolo, and in the summer of 2018, age 30, he joined Lazio for €12 million. In 4 seasons at Lazio, Acerbi became uber professional and one of the best centre-backs in Serie A, lifting 2 trophies and nearly breaking Javier Zanetti's run of 162 consecutive Serie A appearances, which was only interrupted by a 2-game suspension. Last summer, though, Acerbi fell out with Lazio's infamous ultras, who demanded that he be sold. His former boss Simone Inzaghi was determined to bring him to Inter Milan, but the deal was initially blocked by Inter's owners, who didn't want to increase the club's wage bill. Meanwhile, there were protests from Inter's own fans as well, due to Acerbi having been seen laughing last season when AC Milan scored a late winner against Lazio, which had huge implications for Inter Milan in the Serie A title race. Eventually, Inzaghi got his way, and Acerbi, just as he has done every season for the last decade, had the best season of his career to date. Aged 35, he racked up 49 appearances, playing a key role as Inter won the Coppa Italia and reached the Champions League final, where he barely gave Erling Haaland a single sniff at goal. Given that he is 35, all of the hurdles that he has had to overcome, the level at which he is competing, and the fact that he really does look to still be improving at an age at which many of his peers are either considering or have already retired, I can't think of a better candidate to take top spot. That is it for today's video. Other suggestions that I had on Twitter and that made my shortlist included the likes of Harry Kane, Kieran Trippier, Alexander Mitrovic, Weatherton, Dan Burn, Kyle Walker, and a plethora of others. Thank you all very much, as ever, for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Hit the like button if that was the case. Let me know your thoughts and any players that you feel maybe should have featured or at least have been considered down below in the comments. And of course, make sure, it goes without saying, that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for both this channel, HITC Sevens, and my backup channel, or second channel, Alfie Potshammer, both of which should be on your screens now, along with a couple of videos that you might fancy watching after this one. You can also find me on Twitter or on Instagram by the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.